Hey homeschool friends, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to my schedule/routine video for this homeschool year, which is the 2024-2025 homeschool year. You guys, I was a little hesitant to share this video this year only because I honestly feel like I don't have a very firm handle on it. And I'm not exactly sure why, but irregardless, I do want to share some of what I have going on. I have a 5th grader, 4th grader, and twin 1st graders for some reference. But honestly, the schedule routine is different from last year. It's different from the year before. From all the years I've homeschooled, which is like 6 years now. And so how about, I think I'll do this. I will link all of the previous schedule videos I have made on here, and that way you can peruse that in case you have maybe younger kiddos. But irregardless, let's chat about schedules because I think these videos can be really helpful. I feel like they can be helpful for just like general little nuggets or just to really hear how somebody else sets up their day. And so I'm going to share, even if my schedule changes next month or whatever, I think this is still a really good schedule and it's currently working. So let's hop in. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to the channel. Welcome back, all the things. So you guys, I don't even have anything written down this year. Usually I have like a nice little graphic I can post up here and show you my schedule as I talk about it. No, I haven't even done that. And that might be for a few reasons. One, like I said, this is my 6th year teaching, and I think I've learned that it never stays the same. I think though it is good to start with something. I've always been a scheduled type person, a very planner-based person. And so I did loosely strategize some kind of blocks of time, but I just haven't written it down because what's the point? I guess that's kind of what I was thinking. But there have been some things that have worked, some real consistent parts of our day that I want to share with you guys. And so let me start with, say, the morning. Actually, this is something that has changed. And so in past videos, you'll see that I really liked Bible over breakfast. Like we were always going to study Bible. I liked the alliteration of the whole thing. But I felt like last year, what I was struggling with was it was causing me a bit of stress to have it all ready. Like have my kids' food ready and then my food ready and then we're going to sit for breakfast because it really just kind of started our day. And this year we're doing it differently. We're doing Bible at a different time. You'll see in just a second. But the reason is I wanted for my mental health to start the day differently. And so this year we're doing kind of a pre-breakfast prep block, if you will, or at least that's how I'm viewing it in my head. So what we're doing is there's breakfast. We have a loose breakfast schedule, kind of what we eat on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So the kids know that. And for the most part, the kids can make everything themselves, or at least their sister makes the oatmeal and then I come in and help kind of serve it and all of that. But it doesn't mean that I have to have my breakfast ready. So what it has allowed me to do is while they're getting breakfast or while they're eating, I can cook for myself. I make my own food and then I start prepping and preparing materials. And since I use a number of programs that are kind of heavy in the homeschool resources, tools, Abeka, I'm looking at you, I use this time to collect that stuff. So I'll open up my teacher's guide, I'll look for all the things I need for phonics and math for my 1st graders, and I will make piles. Even if I'm not using them right away, I've already collected them. They're on my counter for when we get to like say the math block. It's all ready and all collected. And so I like doing that. I also spend the time doing my chores if it's like sorting laundry and getting the laundry started. My daughter is now doing breakfast dishes and my son is doing lunch dishes. And so I'm getting her going. We're getting everybody changed. You know, it's just very like, let's set the stage. Let's get the kitchen all cleaned up. Let's get everything kind of put away and ready for the day. Because I feel like it's just a me thing. If it's too cluttered and too messy, it brings my anxiety up. And I feel like I do better when it's clean and ready to go and when I have stuff ready. So that's kind of my like morning breakfast before school starts routine. Now my son at this point, he's in 5th grade. He is an early riser. He always has been. So he likes to come up before he's allowed out of his room, which is 7 o'clock. He likes to come up and grab his math so he can do kind of his pre-math. And what that means for this year is he's doing his math fact sheet. He's doing his fixes from the day before. So that means that after I have graded his worksheet from the previous day, he'll take that and he'll fix what he got wrong. And then he'll also start with his warm-up for Saxon. He's in Saxon 6-5. My daughter, my 4th grader, just doesn't like to do that. Sometimes she'll read the reader ahead of time. A lot of times she just honestly likes to listen to her audiobook in the morning and not to school. And that's fine. So I would call that kind of our early morning block. So now mid-morning. So what we do kind of first after chores and breakfast is some specific subjects. I start with history with my big kids, which is another thing I have switched this year, is I wanted enough time to have good conversations about some of these topics. Now I'm not doing science, that's a different time. We're just doing history, and this is all for kids. A lot of times it's just the big kids because of the way I'm combining the two levels of Sonlight I am doing this year, which is HBLD and HBLA, which are both American history, is I'm just running it off of my big kids kind of schedule and bringing the picture books alongside topic by topic. And so we start history. And so we do a lot of our reading. They do a lot of their kind of lap books and discussions and things like that first out of the gates. And that's just kind of a nice touching point for my big kids. And sometimes my twins are here too for that. But a lot of times they're off playing. And then I get the big kids kind of started into some independent work. So during this kind of mid-morning block after history, my oldest, my 5th grader, will go and he'll grab the science book, our Sonlight science book. He'll read that and then do the associated questions. And then he starts his IEW. And so then he can kind of get his headphones on and he can start working on his writing. And it's nice because right here, I'm sitting at our main table here. This is where I'll work with my 1st graders, and he's just kind of around the corner there where that plant is. And that's his desk for this year. And I've separated my big kids. It was necessary. So he's over there kind of in the living room. And then my daughter's more in the schoolroom, which I have some previous homeschool room tours I can post above. I didn't see a need to kind of redo that this year. So she's over there. So he's starting science and IEW. At that point, my daughter is doing some other stuff. She needs to do her pre-math. And the reason I have split out pre-math is if I have her do her fixing, her facts, as well as the warm-up, and then the video lesson, and then the mixed passage. It's just too much math all at once. So I'm making a split and I'm having her start with kind of what I call pre-math. And she often has to sit by me, but sometimes she sits in her desk in there and she'll work through her math. And then she'll do some other independent stuff, or she'll start her Good and the Beautiful. And so she'll bring those over here. And sometimes I'll need to kind of help her with instructions. Other times she'll just kind of sit by me. So she's getting that started. So those things, my 4th grader and 5th grader, are somewhat independent. Obviously I'm here, especially more for my daughter, which I'm finding, and that's fine. She's only in 4th grade. She's a very young 4th grader, and just due to temperament, she needs me around a little bit more than say her older brother. So she can be around. But the main thing I'm doing in this block, which I really set up my blocks based on myself, but this block, this mid-morning block, is when I'm teaching phonics to the 1st graders. That's it. And just due to the fact that phonics, I feel like, is hard to combine the two together in a lesson form because they're sounding out and there's lots of comparison going on. And so I teach them separately. I'll teach one twin and then the next twin the same material. And so it takes quite a while. It takes that whole block of when my older kids are doing other things, and that allows us to get through phonics, and usually they're reader. So that's how Abeka's set up, is there's kind of a phonics section and then there's a reader section, and I'm able to do both of those things in that mid-morning block. And then we get into snack, and so we stop for snack, and at this point everybody kind of needs a break. And even though my son has already done science, he'll come out with us for snack science, another alliteration, and we'll do snack and we'll do science. And so this is fun though, because it's just a perfect break time. I'll read science, we'll do some of those questions that are associated, but then both of the current resources we are using have those kind of scannable links, and we watch a lot of little videos about all the things we are learning about, and it just makes it a nice break, if you will. I mean, it's still a school subject, but it feels very much like a break because everybody in my house loves science. So we do that, and if it gets a little longer, my oldest will kind of break away and he'll start working on something else because he just has more subjects and he tends to go longer in the day. So he won't always stay for all of kind of this snack science block. Okay, and then we get into our late morning block, which I've called math. It's math for everybody. And I kind of like that. And it's really worked out this year because in the past I've kind of had them all over the place. But the fact that I have my big kids split up in 2 different rooms, they're both using Nicole the Math Lady and Saxon. They both start with their videos and just start working through that day's lesson, which is really nice because they've both gotten pre-math out of the way. And so they just do math. And usually that is what they do for that entire block. It takes them from snack till lunch to pretty much finish up math. And if they're done earlier, then they can kind of fill in with some of those independent subjects, which they've been working on throughout kind of the day, whether it be handwriting, typing, logic, things like that, that they can kind of pick up when they have a free moment, which I like having that list of things kind of sprinkled in there. So they're like, oh, I finished really early. I'm like, well, then you have enough time to read your Sonlight Reader. Go read that while I finish up with your brother, stuff like that. So there's enough things to kind of keep them engaged. I don't lose them entirely, right? I don't lose them to toys or whatever they could get into. And so math block. And during this time, I'm working with my first graders again. And this is the block where I sometimes combine the teaching. And it really is a day-by-day basis if I'm able to kind of work with both of them. Like I'll show different flashcards to different children and they won't be as competitive with each other, but it just really depends. It depends on the mood of the kids, honestly. Some days they're happy to share with each other. Other days they want nothing to do with each other. So it's just kind of, I play that by ear, but it's very much math. That's the math time until lunch. And then we get to kind of our lunch block. And so I'll make lunch, we'll get it all ready. And then that's when I am reading our read aloud. And this is where it's a little tricky because I can't quite get both read alouds done. And so I tend to prioritize my big kids read aloud. And if we get to my twins, we get to my twins. So reading aloud is that time. And at this point, my twins are all done because they've done phonics and math and actually their handwriting. Their handwriting I take to the end of math. So they did that in the previous block. So they're all done by the time we're done with lunch. And then they go and find something to do. And this is when I finish out with my big kids because there's still subjects that they need me for, right? They're not totally independent. They're not totally on these online programs like we use Nicole the Math Lady in IEW. That's it for online teaching resources. And so I still have spelling mostly. So I have spelling for my daughter and like writing because we do the good and the beautiful, like I said, but she can't do the writing section by herself totally. So we usually do that together in the afternoon after lunch. And that balances with spelling. Those are never on the same day. They kind of rotate. So it works out. So I could do the all about spelling and then the good and the beautiful writing with my daughter. And at that point, it usually depends on who I start with. Like it depends who hasn't read the reader. Because usually if like my daughter has read the reader, then I'll start with her, vice versa. And so the other child usually has something to do while I'm doing some language arts with like my daughter versus my son. And so then I'll wrap her up and I'll move into his stuff. And at that point, I need to do logic of English with my oldest. That's his big subject that we do together. And so that's really the thing we leave till pretty much the end of the day when I've been needed for everybody else. And now I have this block of time that I can work with him. And so we'll do logic of English and anything else he needs either help with or he needs me to edit something or something like that. And so that gets us to the end of the big part of our day. I would say we start school at around 8 in the morning and I'm done with him probably around 2-ish. And then everybody gets a break. Everybody gets a break. And then I decided this year to pull Bible into our evening time. So it's Bible over dinner. It's not quite so catchy, but Bible over dinner. And that was because I wanted to include my husband. I wanted to have him home and we're reading scripture, we're memorizing scripture. We have other resources that he could bring his knowledge and expertise into. And then the kids are also learning from him. And it's a win-win situation, at least in my opinion. And so that's where kind of our day ends, is over dinner, but really it kind of ends at 2 and we have a big break until that time. And so that's our schedule, routine, whatever you want to call it. I do have a few things I have learned. Like I said, this is like my 6th year. And so some of the tips that I have learned that help this whole thing go a little smoother. First is I clean as I go. So what I mean by that is I do have a big kitchen island that's between this main table and the schoolroom. And so that kind of holds all of my teaching stuff and resources and I will make piles. Oftentimes I can't put it away right then, but I do like to put it away as we go. And it just helps my mental clarity. I've learned that if it's a complete and utter disaster, I start to get stressed. So I start to clean as I go. And I make my kids clean as they go too. I have them clean up their desks and put away their math and things like that. Another thing that's really helped me is I have my planner, which I'll link up above my review of the Sonlight Planner. It really works for me, but I just have it in one of those flex binders, and I have it out on our island, and it's open and it's color coded based on child. I don't know if I've done a planning video recently. Maybe I'll do that this fall. But basically the kids, especially the big kids who can kind of work a little bit more independently, wander over to my planner and they can look at what they need to do. Now I did get them planners, and I sometimes will just put in what they need in their planner, but sometimes I feel like that's a little redundant and I can't quite find a groove there. I can't figure out what's better, but I do like that I can keep my planner on the island and they can just go look to see what they have left and they can start marking things off. So I like that. This year I've also included little check boxes on my planner that are to remind me to check their work. So for instance, I forget often to check my son's like science questions. But if I have a little checkbox in that section of my planner, then I can check when he's done it, but I can also check when I've checked it, if that makes sense. And I feel like that should be really obvious, but it's really helped me. Another tip is that I have kind of one goal per block. So you kind of heard me call them blocks. It's more of a routine thing, but it's like I have one goal for that block, and usually it's just like, where am I needed? Who am I mainly teaching? And how can I set up everybody around that? And it has worked really well this year. I feel like this is the first year that I've really blocked our schedule out, and it's so far helping. But I do have the benefits of the fact that my 4th grader and 5th grader have a lot of things they can do independently that they can get my help for, but mostly I just have to check to make sure they're doing it correctly and things like that. So that does help this system. When I had like kindergartners and 1st graders, this might not have worked quite as well. And then the last thing is that I have grouped my 1st graders kind of in a whole chunk of time. Like for what I said is like we start with history, but then they might not be there. But then I go into my blocks where I'm doing phonics and math kind of right in the middle of our schedule. So that helps me kind of keep them engaged and they don't leave for too long. Like they do a bit because I'm working twin by twin, and so the other one has to take a break. But for the most part, they know that they are needed in this kind of general block for me to teach them. And so that's really helped me. So those are some just kind of random tips that I have acquired over the years, or acquired with just kind of this type of a schedule. And so I hope this is helpful. I realize I don't have any fancy graphics. I didn't have anything to show you. This just is working currently. It's been working for over a month now. I've been tweaking it here and there, but nothing large. I think that the framework has been consistent since we have started up. So anyway, that is what I have, you guys. I hope it was helpful. Let me know down below if you are a schedule or a routine girl. Let me know if it helps you to kind of schedule your day. But if you don't necessarily have anything to say, but want to let me know you were here, how about put a picture of like a clock? I bet there's a clock emoji down below to just let me know you were here. And otherwise, that's what I have. Give the video a like if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to. And I will see you guys in the next homeschool video. All right, take care.